Hello and welcome to a new season of Speak Greasy. We are back with a new season in association with the Australian Macadamia Society. It's an organization that leads growth, innovation, and sustainable farming practices for the industry across Australia, representing over 85% of the Australian macadamia farmers. My first guest on our new season, which is aptly called A Hard Nut to Crack, is a dear friend and partner in our business, Siddharth Jogani, who is the founder of Restaverse. Um, Siddharth has had a decade-long history with Zomato. I have no idea why. But is now helping the hospitality industry navigate the whole data ecosystem and something that I totally didn't understand a year ago. I think I've made a little bit of progress, but we're here to pick Sid's brains on tech, data, and the entire delivery ecosystem. Welcome to the show, Sid. Nice to have you here.
Yes, likewise. I'm happy to be with you. Yeah.
So, I'm gonna dive right in to talk about tech because I think that is what your business revolves around and what you're a guru of. Everyone says that, and especially post-COVID, everyone says that restaurants need to become tech savvy. Like that's the way forward for restaurants. They have to incorporate tech into their businesses. And so can you sort of just very sort of briefly tell us what is it that tech can solve for in restaurants and what should restaurants sort of not go down the tech route for?
Sure. Okay. So I'll just take a step back, right? In general, on the tech side of things for restaurateurs, let's say like 2 decades back, right? Everyone was essentially using a billing software. I would actually not even call it software because it was just purely billing, right? Like that would happen. That was the only tech that a restaurateur had to sort of, cut to today. Now, if you think of it, a lot of restaurateurs, new age or even like those who've been here for decades, they all loved the whole hospitality side of things, right? Like they basically loved serving people, cooking, all of that. But now, because of Instagram, social media, because of aggregator platforms, because of reservation systems, payments, so much has digitized that everyone needs to actually know, okay, like, how do I navigate each of these things, right? And I often say that post-COVID, especially when like a lot of people were literally overnight turned into like, digital businesses, they did not actually know how to navigate, right? So I always tell them that, listen, in general, what got you to this business? It is hospitality. So you should stick to that core and everything else you should like, give it to an expert. Just the way you don't go inside the kitchen and cook, it's done by a chef. Similarly, like everything else that comes your way, which you are not an expert, figure out who's the best person. And like, in my time, I've seen that the brands that have actually believed in getting an expert to solve things, they've actually prospered, right?
So I think that's an interesting way to put it. It's anything that makes things easier because that's what hospitality is about, right? You're trying to make your guests' life easier, happier, all of that. And things that do it for both your diner, your customer, as well as maybe your team, is what it all boils down to.
Absolutely.
So I guess, there are places where, maybe sort of stay away from the tech. Just because it's convenient to you doesn't mean it's the most sort of gratifying experience for a diner.
Yeah.
But before we get into, what you've been doing specifically, what are some of the sort of tech trends that you're seeing globally that haven't made their way to India that you think, you see sort of coming soon?
So, couple of things, right? A lot of QSRs, right? What they've put in is a AI tool which basically listens to conversations. Literally like when you are doing your billing or when you're placing your order, right? You go to, let's say, a Shake Shack and, they're basically listening to all these conversations and what they're tracking is, okay, did the person greet you? Number one. Number two, okay, what are the customizations that people want, right? what is the average time a conversation took place for, and basis all of this information that they're listening to, they're then bucketing everything, right? So think of it as previously we used to have social listening as a platform, right? They're essentially doing this whole offline listening. They're making this in different buckets, and then they're just telling the owners that, listen, operationally, these stores do well, these don't, and whatever you want to slice and dice, right? I found that super exciting. Like the data geek that I am, I was like, this is amazing. And like on those lines, we essentially built a first one, like which is like a checklist, right? And what we learned from that trend is that there are multiple languages, Spanish, English, etc. And we said, okay, here in India, we have so many regional languages. Thanks to AI again, you can actually, like, I mean, it's super solid, right? Like, you can actually say that, okay, what percentage of your guests converse in what language? That will actually now help you train or hire staff accordingly. So,
Interesting.
yeah, so I mean, I would just say with the way things are evolving, in some time, it will not be a surprise to me if there are enough and more SaaS companies within the restaurant industries themselves, right? Like I'm already talking to some of these large players who are figuring out an internal tech team, an internal product and SaaS platform, because there's so much that you can do. Recently, I was talking to someone, because hiring is such a big part in hospitality. What they've done through AI, they've essentially done the first round of screening. They will actually tell you that, was this person distracted in the interview? Was this
So what do you mean? So the interview is being recorded and then there's feedback like
yeah,
being generated from
exactly.
it?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So essentially it's throwing questions at you. And then like literally like once you give an answer.
Oh, so you mean the interview is with an AI tool?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's completely that, right? And like when I was like, wow,
So this is being
great.
used
It is.
like,
Yeah.
wow.
And in fact, I asked that person, I said, listen, like, can you like make it a SaaS? I would love to do that, even in our business, right? Because we are constantly, figuring out, we send that these days, even case studies don't make sense.
Right.
Because people, I mean, everyone uses an AI tool. They give you a deck.
So you can't
Yeah.
fudge your way through
Exactly.
that.
So the only way is real conversations, right? So I just feel like,
Ironically. But you know, when you're talking about things like recording conversations and all, like, I'm just
yeah,
like,
it's
isn't that like a
creepy,
privacy,
yeah.
like weird sort of line that we're crossing here?
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess if it's with everyone's knowledge,
Yeah.
you know, possibly, but it is
Training and quality purpose.
Yeah.
Like,
you got me there. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting as to how these things can be. And you know, it's funny when you're saying about companies now sort of building it in-house in a way.
yeah.
We actually just hired our first data analyst, and I was like, God, like I never thought that we'd see the day, you know, where but it actually does help
Yeah.
to you know, because I mean I've always sort of heard this that there's one part of decision making that's based on gut
Yeah.
and experience, and then there's another part that's sort of very much
Yeah.
grounded in data, right?
And restaurants are sitting on so much data.
Yeah.
Right? Like no one actually like sits and like, actually analyze that. So I'm glad that we're moving in a direction where most businesses are now realizing this.
So talking about data and the amount that restaurants are sitting on, let's talk about our favorite subject, aggregators. Can't live with them, can't live without them, kind of thing. So yeah, you spent a decade at Zomato. Like, wow, I think you deserve a medal for that, for sure. But yeah, tell us how you got started, how you ended up there, you know, what you did there, and then why you left.
Sure. I mean, like just like most of us here, right? Like I really loved food, right? And like I did financial services for my internship, and I realized that's not me. Like when I was growing up, I wanted to do investment banking, but I mean, like it's just like glamorous, but in reality, I said, listen, I can't do this, right? I, and then Zomato came to campus, and at that point, I said, like I didn't even know something like Zomato existed, because back then in Mumbai we used to use Burp, right? Like that was I'm talking about that time, right?
Yeah, this was Meals on Wheels. I remember
Yes,
Meals
Meals
on
on Wheels,
Wheels.
Burp, and then Just Dial obviously for like anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, okay, yeah, these guys are doing something great. The UI back then was also really nice. And you just get that vibe that, okay, these guys, they look like game changers. So I said, cool, like if I get in, that'll be nice. So yeah, everything happened, got in. Zomato didn't even have an app that time, right? So it was a website when we joined. And everyone would go online, just scan menus, browse, and call and do whatever, right? Like reserve a table or delivery. So my first role was actually to sell ads to these restaurants. And most of the times, initially, when I would go to these restaurants, they would say, "What is this Zomato?" It would be like, "Oh, tomato." Like literally on calls, I faced rejection where people have just hung up on me saying, "Koi to tomato," and then literally that. Okay. And then you're like explaining to people that, okay, this is what we're doing. And then, you have to compare yourself to Burp, Just Dial, all of this, right? Like I would say we were not even like the second player, we were the third player. After that, I mean, after selling ads for about 6 to 9 months, I also realized during that time that I really enjoy meeting people, right? And I realized that a lot of them, everyone literally is operationally so drained. So let me help these guys and let me figure out how I can help these guys, right? So even beyond just selling ads, I would figure out that, okay, what are consumers ordering? Back then it was, we actually, Zomato had this call tracking feature that we would give to clients. So you would listen to all the calls and you would manually input everything, right? Like no AI. So imagine going through all these calls and like, then giving them insights on all of these things. So did that. Post that, I think they realized that, okay, I'm doing something good. So they said, okay, why don't you go to Lisbon? And we were scaling the whole uh, like menu scanning business plus advertising, right? Launch the market, train people on how we sell ads and how to grow the business. Came back to India, online food ordering was happening back then, 2015. I had to convince restaurateurs that you will get an order online. And then lastly, where actually Restaverse came to my head was 2018, where I was working with a lot of national partners. And I saw that there's so much data that Zomato is sitting on. And brands like Rebel Foods, McDonald's, etc., they have large teams who can actually execute a lot of the insight we give them, right? Which a lot of mom and pop stores, or even I would say 5-10 store brands don't have, right? And I said, okay, if this is like, if this is the industry that needs to grow, the mid segment will grow as well, right? Because back then I remember national QSRs were forming just like 5% of overall listings on the platform, right? I think today that number would be around 8% or
Bulk is that mid-size.
yeah, mid or like mom and pop, right? So I said, if the industry has to grow, these guys have to like grow, and for them they need an enabler. That was the first time that I
Basically, we were like, okay, there's data. Zomato is giving sort of the insight about that data to, or they can give you that. They have the capability, but they don't, like the restaurants don't have the ability to sort of interpret that data or to what to do with it, to act on
absolutely,
it. Right.
absolutely, right. So that was I mean, that was a time when I thought about this. Then I said, okay, we'll figure when it's the right time, because I was enjoying my role, right? And then when COVID happened, there are so many people who reached out saying that, hey, like, can you help us out? And
I mean, delivery became like the main sort of.
and at that point in time, I said, okay, like if I have to actually help so many people out, there's no way. I have to think of a platform, right? Like I can't do a service, right? I can't scale it. So yeah, that's where again this thought came into play.
So before we talk about, the Restaverse phase now, tell me some of the things that you sort of learned there that you still carry with you even today when as an entrepreneur now.
So I remember this was my first, literally like my first month, right? And I was under training. And back then, our sales head, his name is Saurabh Sen Gupta. We used to call him Sobby. He came to Bombay and he said, I mean, just we were having a conversation, and I said, listen, like, I'm new, I'm a 20-year-old. How will people take me seriously? Like, what should I do? So he said, listen, you don't have to do anything. Like, you just like face rejection, and rejection will teach you everything. Don't be in the office that often. Go meet people, because the more people you meet, the more you learn. The more you'll be inside, like, you'll always be in a bubble. And that I still today like take back, and I'm like, okay, you know what? And and that's a part of me now, right? Like I don't like being in office. I like meeting people, conversing with them, because every conversation, like you'll learn something, you'll take something, right? The other thing was ownership, right? So even at young age, like like Dipti and Pankaj PC at that point, and they would just give you full autonomy, saying that listen, take a call, you will fail, we've got your back because we know your intent is clean, right? So I think that's something that we follow here, and people are actually like, "Are you sure we can make a mistake? Like, it's no problem." I said, "Yeah, as long as you're learning and as long as you're improving, we're totally fine, right?" And that is why I think people enjoy startups, because if you have to constantly take an approval, then that slows down, right? Like speed will slow down, everything will happen. So I think that's like the key thing that I've taken back, ownership. Right? Like I would just put it that.
Wow. And I guess it's timely that Dipinder just announced his exit from Zomato. So any thoughts on that? Any sort of was it sort of a natural next step?
I've learned so much from that guy, right? And
Because it was like working
yeah.
with him.
So I would just put it as he's someone who could, like, what I loved about him is the fast decision making. Like he would just know that, okay, let's do this, let's move on, right? Like cut your loss, whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like so many countries launched everything. Back then, I launched a lot of these countries which today are non-existent. And I used to be like, damn, like, so many years, like, I just wasted, like, what is this? But, and again, like, when I would chat with him, I would actually understand that, listen, India is such a large market and like there's so much opportunity on the table, right? So if you focus on what's actually going to multiply, like that will be far larger than optics, right? So yeah, so I mean, that guy would just be like very, the right word is, I mean, somewhere you know, like these people, right? Like who are visionaries,
Yeah.
like literally, right? Like he would know a lot of stuff. And every conversation I would take so much back. Even when I started Restaverse, I showed him the dashboard, like, what I'm thinking. He was clear. He was like, listen, this is crap. This is great. Go like deep dive on this one. And I said, and actually, whatever he told me is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, the guy has solid knowledge and like deep respect. Yeah.
So, you obviously moved on and then started Restaverse. So tell us a little bit about, I mean, you've talked about what inspired the idea, but what exactly do you do?
So, if I were to simplify today, and I'll go a little back in time, today when restaurants, like previously before aggregators, discovery would happen how? I mean, I'm talking about pre-social media, pre-aggregator, word of mouth.
Yeah.
And
A little bit of press, maybe.
yeah, and like more so you would be like, okay, you would go to a market or you would go to a mall, and that's where you would discover brands, right? So if I just put it like, apple to apple, discovery is all about like who saw you, which is in digital words an impression, right? And then who actually came to your restaurant and checked your menu. You go to a lot of like European places, the menus are outside, right? You can just see that is a menu open, right? In digital words. And then you decide what you want to order. So you're building a cart. And then at times you are like, oh, you know what? Actually, I don't want this. You cancel it. So you abandon the cart. And then when you actually place the order and you pay the bill, that's when you place an order. Now, this in the digital world is a funnel,
Right.
right? So we are decoding and simply making people understand that. Now, a lot of, I would say, solid restaurant owners, when I say solid, like people who've done the trade long enough on the aggregator platform, they understand this. The problem is a lot of people just put discounts and ads as the solution to growing business, right? But if you ask me, and if you remember our engagement as well, the first 6 months, 8 months, we didn't even look at that metric, right? We said, listen, we're not going to do any of this. We're not touching any of this because there's so much juice left in the listing itself, right? There's so much that you can do purely on the listing. So the reason why brands work with Restaverse is they essentially want to understand the SEO and then the performance marketing on these platforms.
So, just sort of coming to brands now,
Sure.
what are some of the basic, simple things that they can be doing even before they come to you?
Sure. I think the first thing that every brand needs to track is simple ratings and reviews, right? Because I think that always will send an invoice later. if you don't take care of your current ratings or reviews, and again, the hacky way here is people put fake reviews. I'm like, listen, great. But if you keep doing this, you're not solving the problem, right? So, which is why one of our first products that we built was the online reputation management, where we said that listen, all these reviews, complaints, refunds, whatever that's happening with customer experience, which is quantifiable, share that with you.
When you say you're not solving the problem, you mean that if they're not happy about something, you're not solving that. You're just trying to increase the number.
I'll give you an example, right? One of our clients, right, in Calcutta, they basically changed their fries vendor. Okay. And their rating for fries was constantly going down, but they realized this 2 months later when they were doing a monthly analysis that, okay, why is the fries sales dropping? So if you look at it by default, if you would have kept a close eye on the rating, then you would have known that, okay, this is not working for me, right? So everyone looks at revenue. But the part about ratings and complaints is that, you can solve tomorrow's case today, which is why I said they will send the invoice later, right? So it is super important for you to look at which item is actually not performing well in terms of ratings also, right? Because at times it could just be that, okay, it's great on dining, but it's getting soggy. For example, like lotus stems, right? Like for them that happens. The other thing that I've seen is like salty, oily, all of these things, right? So you need to look at that and then you need to check, okay, what's happening. At times, the best restaurateurs or best teams there, they will actually place an order themselves, saying that, okay, this is an issue for this store. Let me see what happens. How is it reaching me?
I mean, we do the same thing for dine-in.
Exactly.
So we don't kind of follow that same logic enough for and also I think like especially restaurateurs who have focused so much on the dine-in business and seen delivery as like a little thing on the side is where that gets kind of missed, right? But you have to like apply the same
And if you remember, right, like the whole food trials that we did, for example, like, I mean, that's an eye opener for so many kids, right? So yeah, I would just say before you even come to a company like Restaverse, just do these things in house and see, like, because at the end of the day, if no matter who you hire, you have to sell that product.
Yeah.
If that product is great, then we can only amplify that.
So just to kind of build on what Sid said, like some of the things that we did, which is kind of like basic hygiene. We tasted sort of competitor products for every single SKU that we had on our menu to understand portion sizes, to understand quality, pricing, all of that. And it was a mammoth task. I think we ate way too much in that those couple of weeks. But it was really helpful inside. I think even things like putting images of every single product, having descriptions, these are just basic low-hanging fruit that you can do even before you start getting into the sort of, tech part of it. No, it's so, we've been working together, I think almost 2 years now. And I know that sort of as we got comfortable, the next stage was about growing that sort of footfall to your restaurant analogy, right? The impression, the menu opens and things like that. And that does sort of require possibly for the discovery to happen, for ads, discounts, things like that. I know that I've always personally been very against that. It feels like this big black hole that your mayor is just going into, and you may see some thought for a little while. I know. And I was like, no, nahi, nahi. And but I think a lot of I probably echo how a lot of people feel. And I think a lot of people have lost money in the black hole without understanding how it's delivering, what the ROI is, what to expect, how to manage it, etc. I know because you built the other side of it. You're now coming and kind of how to navigate it. Is it fair to say that if people don't work with agencies like yours, that's they're going to be losing money in the end?
So I'll tell you one thing, right? Like, this is a question now I usually ask partners before we partner with them. Like, listen, like, who manages your money, right? Like, where do you invest? And then if they say equities, I'm like, okay, does someone invest or you invest by yourself, right? I always say leave it to the experts, as I told you, right? So if someone's managing your money, and even in there, right? Like, there are people who've lost money in the market because of whatever reason, right? Uh, the same thing is applicable here as well. There are so many variables, things change so frequently. I mean, I met one restaurant partner who said that, oh, we put the ads for the next 6 months. Now we are good. Now we're just going to enjoy the show. I said, wow, if that was the case, like,
You'd be awesome.
right? And I have realized that for most of them, it's like a checklist. They're like, okay, great. Like, okay, so we need to place an ad. Great. We need to
Allocated a budget.
yeah, like, and some people just meet me on dinner and they will be like, okay, what's the right commission? What's the right percentage in marketing? This, that. I said, listen, like, I'm happy to give you all this information, but without looking at your data, it's like going to a doctor, not showing your reports, and being like, okay, what should I do? Like, tell me, right? Like, so I just feel that, listen, you need to first understand where are you positioned? What is your TG? Is your TG would be the ultra premium guy, but if on the platform, the mid market guys are actually like, like looking for you or ordering from you, then there is decent deviation. So the fundamental disconnect is a lot of people don't understand that. But the other problem about us in community is that everyone wants to do everything their way and everyone thinks they know everything. So yeah, like
I'm the opposite. I'm like, I know things.
so,
But yeah,
I just feel in general for aggregators, a lot of people call it like, the black box. And it's going to become like, even more complex, right? Because the more data you feed in, the more complicated it is going to get. There are so many variables, right? Like, I know a lot of people who don't even give enough importance, forget measuring uh, MFR, food, like, mark food ready, or even prep time.
yeah, I didn't know all these acronyms
Right.
till I think we started working together. I was like, what is KPG and what is MFI?
Everyone
Yeah.
will just talk about discounts ads, discounts.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that is the POC's job to sell you these things, and great, they're doing their job, and you are also putting in money. But hey, like, if all of this is not in place, of course, like, your return on ad spend won't be great. Then you complaining about conversion. And the classic thing about a restaurateur is, oh, the guy next door is doing this. Why am I, like, not getting the same results, right?
What drives consumer behavior on these aggregators? Firstly, how does someone decide whether
Yeah.
they're going with Swiggy or Zomato?
Sure.
Because generally, I feel like most restaurants that are on both would have parity
Yeah.
as far as their brand is
Sure.
concerned.
Yeah.
So, what is it that drives the consumer now?
So, actually, like, this comes from, doing a lot of, like, I mean, even today, when I go to universities or I meet anyone, I ask them, okay, what app do you use? Why do you use this? What do you look at? Like, it is just like, psychology, right? The top answer that I get, right? Why do people actually use these apps is trust, right? There are a lot of brands that tried direct ordering, bunch of things happened during COVID, right? But what have these platforms done? These platforms have actually made it super convenient for a user to place an order and for them to know that roughly in this much time I will get my food, and guaranteed I'll get that, right? I'm sure there will be like some rejection rate or failure rate, but most of the times that's happening. The other part is they know that if in case something goes wrong, I'm going to get my money back, right? But the first thing that the customer basically looks at, like, it's the trust that gets them to install the app, right? Once the app is installed, then the next thing that they look at is assortment. That, okay, like, whatever I want, is it there on the app?
But I mean, let's face it, the two apps are pretty much like mirror images.
Absolutely. So I would say very few restaurants would actually be exclusive on one and not on the other. But both of them need to have assortment.
But there's still geographies that very much favor one app over
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other.
yeah,
So what is
absolutely.
driving that?
So I also feel that's to do with so I'll give you a small example, right? You in Bombay, you go to Chembur, like, that's Swiggy heavy as a market, right? For premium brands in South Bombay or even Bandra, that's Swiggy heavy. But you go to Andheri or you go to, like, western suburbs, it is Zomato heavy in terms of,
But why?
think of home ground advantage. Bangalore is Swiggy. North
Got-
is, yeah, but, like, NCR is Zomato, right? Like, I know people in these two markets who don't have the other app, right? For, like, I think at least we would have both the apps. So forget like having like one app or like both. Like, they have just like literally one, and like they're not even like switching or anything like that. So I say like this whole part, right? Like, even South Bombay to Bandra is because of Scoot C that people move to Swiggy, right? So it is just what you use first. So once you've gotten used to something, then you don't go back easily.
Right.
So which is why like that defines market share. Now, how do people swing market share, right? Like because both the platforms want to be relevant, they want to so offers and discounts that is the easiest hack, right? The second thing is these passes, right? Like Gold Pass or Swiggy One Pass or membership or any of these benefits. I remember when Zomato started the Gold membership free delivery. This is 21, 22, right? So many people in South Bombay who used to be Swiggy users actually shifted to Zomato because they said that, okay, this is great because I constantly order and I'm going to save this much money. It's amazing, right?
The apps are like, I would say, like, plus minus
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much
yeah.
the same, right? So it's then driven by where am I getting the best deal at the time that you want to order.
There's a
So
segment of there's a cohort of users which like these platforms called P3 and LA, which is less affluent. That falls in that bucket, right? And they are aware that okay, this is a segment that is fully value conscious,
right.
right? But everyone today is targeting the up market and the mid market because premiumization is happening. So everyone's right now thinking about okay, how do I get this consumer because their average order value is higher. If that is higher, my profitability is higher. If my profitability is higher, I mean, everything just makes sense, right? And the quality of food is also definitely higher. So there was a time about like I would say when they started out, when both of these platforms would go after meals at 99 or things like that. But now that is changing, right? So order volume was a metric that they would look at. Now they're looking at what is the net profit or gross margin or CM1, CM2 in the language per order, and which is why AOVs will be a big driver,
Right.
right?
It's
So
funny.
assortment, quality, which is rating, and I would say like in general like affordability. These are the top pillars for a user to basically choose a particular app.
You know, we all love leaving negative reviews. I mean, that's in our DNA.
Yeah, yeah.
To be assholes, I guess.
Yeah.
But and we don't, I think, praise restaurants enough. And,
Yeah,
do the sort of give a pat on the back and the apps do allow for that.
yeah.
But just for the benefit of restaurants, can you explain the impact of a bad review? When it affects, because everyone talks about this algorithm, which again is the
Yeah.
black hole that nobody actually understands. But how does it truly affect a restaurant or a cloud kitchen when a customer leaves a negative review?
So, in general, right, like firstly, like from like today, like almost like 8,000 odd restaurants that work with us, when we analyze that, okay, how many orders actually convert to a rating? Forget a review. It's just like merely like 7, 8%, right? Some of the high volume restaurants, like which is basically lower AOV or average order value, they trend at around 12 to 13%.
Wow.
Right? But for high value, high AOV brands, it's lower because that customer is satisfied. They're happy. They don't want to leave a review. Like, they're anyway just too busy in their life to do any of this. But like the other segment does. And even within that, majority of them, right? Like again, so when you look at high OV brands, only 10 to 15% of the reviews will actually be negative, right?
Okay.
Because otherwise, people, when I talk to brands, they're like, yeah, people just write a bad review. They don't ever praise us. That's the
Right.
common thing that, you follow. But I was like, okay, let's see, like, what is happening, right? Do people also put positive reviews? And I said, that, okay, yeah, this is the case. Because if it would always be negative heavy, then the ratings would not be 4 point something, right? Like, they would be in twos or threes.
So you think
Right?
it's a little bit of
Conditioning.
Oh, actually, I think what it is also is that when they want to leave something negative,
Yeah.
they'll actually write because you're like angry and you're like typing away there. You're like, I'm gonna like
Yeah.
make you know why I didn't. And if you're happy, you just put the star thing, so you don't maybe register those as much as.
And so I just feel in general, like both the things are happening. Like, you are getting feedback and that is a sample size, right? So let's accept whatever has happened because a common thing that again, restaurants will say is, hey, on dining, look, everything is great. Like, there's no issue. Only on delivery, this issue happens. And I'm like, okay, on dining, if someone has an issue, they can tell your server and they will fix it and it's done. But on delivery, what do they do?
So let's talk a little bit about the dine-in space.
Yeah.
I think again, from a restaurateur's perspective, there's a lot of fear and sort of doubt about why they should sort of allow the aggregators to come into this space because they've been managing just fine. And obviously, when it came to delivery, there's a clear value add from a tech, convenience, logistics aspect. All of that is a clear value add. But once you're in the restaurant, how much really are you doing? So, as an aggregator, so what's the future looking like? Is it inevitable? Is it here to stay? Do restaurants need to kind of come on board or sort of, adopt, but at the same time be smart about it? So how should restaurants or the industry at large really navigating this?
So again, right? Like I think Districts, We Dine Out, Easy Diner, the three large apps today for eating out. Um, they are where food delivery was in 2015, 2016, right? Early days. And why do I say that? Because, so again, in food delivery, if you think of it, how large was delivery earlier, right? It would be 5-10% of a restaurant's business, right?
Yeah.
Today, I've seen it go to like 55%, right? For QSRs. For casual dining, it's at around 20 to 25% at peak, right? And for the ones who don't look at delivery as a business unit, it's that same 5-10%, right? Uh, so you have to give credit to the aggregators, food delivery
100%.
platforms that they've built that ecosystem for food delivery where people find convenience, right? The same thing for quick commerce today, where they actually find convenience, and which is why like the last minute ordering happens there. On dining, I think they are doing that habit formation right now, because if you think of it, the one classic thing you would have heard both these leaderships talk about, right? Like of the two large companies, is that when you go to Australia, when you go to Singapore, when you go to US, any of these markets, the average eating out in a month
Is much higher.
right? Compared to where India stands, right? Like last time that I read about this, we were at like some three, the average was that. And like these other evolved, I would say, lack of a better word, economies, right? They were at like 20 or,
Yeah.
right? And the number of meals that you have in a day, like, 3 to 4 multiplies to like 100, odd meals that you actually have. So that penetration is very poor today. I think today, if you look at both these apps, they give you a cashback, which is valid for 7 days, because they're trying to increase your frequency of eating out, right? Because they know that once that happens, once the convenience is built into your lifestyle, then it's difficult to go back, right? So they're investing in that ecosystem today. Like if you looked at Zomato's report that just came out, right, like quarterly results, they like 5% or is the burn on dining out business, right? Versus deliveries like
They're
seven
investing, they're building it.
they're building that ecosystem. So I just feel that it's on you, right? Like there are partners, there are restaurants who actually they're saying, you know what, let's ride the wave, right? Like that's what they did during delivery. Now they're doing that right now, and they're saying we will ride this wave. We'll figure out how this happens. But I think fundamentally for dining out, right, it's an experience. So if you think of it, delivery initially started with used to get things in that plastic, those bags, right? Like how was that experience? Cut to today, you get like a
Amazing
right.
packaging and like,
So
yeah.
that ecosystem has evolved. The same thing in for dining, if you look at it, courtesy Instagram and social media, the kind of ambience, like the kind of things that you do in a restaurant today versus what you used to do before, that has evolved, because now you know that, okay, you know what, this is what brings crowd. This is why that martini I can sell at 2x the price, example, right? So all of this that is happening, and not just Alcobev, but also these platforms investing in the ecosystem will essentially give, I mean, a lot of new brands will open up. A lot of, like, I just think that the number of restaurants will also shoot up, right?
So it's interesting. Basically, what you're saying is that as a result of the convenience of booking through these apps,
Yeah.
people might just do it more frequently.
Yeah.
And in a way, long term, it's
Yeah.
helping
Yeah.
the F&B industry.
I feel this is going to be large for the industry in terms of the frequency. And I also feel the kind of revenues that a restaurant like they do today versus what they will do in like 5 years from now, even inflation adjusted. will be far better.
That's interesting. I'm gonna sort of uh I guess sum up with this one question that, between a consumer, an F&B operator, an investor in various businesses, but
Yeah.
in the aggregators, and of course the aggregators as well. Um, who holds the most power today?
I think we all know that.
What? My answer is going to be different to yours.
uh, I think the 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 platform, right? Like because they're aggregating everyone. They have on one side the consumer, the restaurateur, and on the other side the gig workers, right? Who are like delivery partners. For sure. I mean, like today, let's take an example. Even if a segment, which happened at 25th of December, a lot of riders went on strike and they said, but what did that create a dent? No, right? Tomorrow, let's assume that the food delivery partners and restaurant owners both decide to like log off, right?
It's happened in the past.
Yeah, it has, right? But there will still be someone who will be on because someone's livelihood depends on that, right? Everyone will not log off at the same time, right? So, and all that a platform needs in a given locality is, let's say, 100 restaurants. Today they have thousands, right? That deliver, or they can activate, okay, long distance, whatever. Like everything is with them. So I truly feel that, yeah, they have a lot of power and they have, I would say, they've invested to become this power position, right? So yeah, like I that's what I think. Yeah.
I will reserve my opinion on this, but yeah, I mean, on that very joyful note of knowing that we're not in control of our own businesses, we are going to move to a slightly more fun
Yeah.
end of the podcast. But no, but honestly, that was really insightful. I think, and it's given me a lot of thought of also how you can use tech to really enhance and help your business,
Yeah.
and not see it as this like scary thing that we don't understand. I think it's worth investing that time and effort to understand how it can help you. And yeah, and before we move to that, if you would like to have I just learned how to crack macadamias, by the way. So if you want to have one and power up for the next session, oh my God, see, I didn't know how to do this. Okay. I just learned. Yeah. Okay. You didn't even use that?
No, I did that before.
Okay, now you're showing off. Anyway, this is so good. Um, okay. So in keeping with our theme about nuts, what drives you nuts?
Like if I see a messy Excel sheet, it's not a good thing. Like I'll put like conditional formatting, this, that, everything has to be like proper.
Okay, well, Team Restaverse, I hope you're listening closely. But fair enough. What's the nuttiest request you've had from a client?
Think of is so it's a fairly large org, and they said, hey, we are going to use your tool. It's great. But can you build this whole tool for us? But we will pay you a 1 year subscription fee. I was like, wait, this means like you need a tech shop, not us. And then some of these guys, they also like, if they feel that they've, you taken our tool, they'll just randomly call me like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. They'll be like, hey, like my business is down. I subscribe to your tool. I said, yeah, you subscribe to the tool, not the service. So like, there's a, like, so yeah, like people just randomly, the expectation mismatch.
Is it that like from day one you have to be delivering the results? So yeah, I guess that's fair. I think it's managing expectations.
Yes.
What's the hardest nut you've had to crack as a founder? Or even as a client?
Post hiring, like retention, right? Like retaining some of these guys and making them believe that this is the vision, this is what we are going to do. Everyone sees the impact that we are having on restaurateurs. Every now and then, when we get like some random testimonial, right? Like we are not asking, someone just says, hey, this tool has been game changing. Like all of it just takes everyone like, oh wow, like we're doing something, right? Otherwise, most of the time, I'm just like convincing them that, okay, listen, you're on the right path. So recently I was talking to another founder and I said, like, I'm thinking of renaming my cabin to a therapy room because that's what I'm like, mostly doing.
Mine I've thought of renaming as principal's room because I literally feel like I run a school.
Yeah. So yeah, that I would say talent management, for lack of a better word, team management.
And which client has been the hardest nut to crack?
like there's this Asian brand, right? I met them even like when I was like when Restaurants was a thought. I met. Then I think every year we've met, and now finally they've come on board. Like this has been like what 2 3 months. And now like he's like yeah like he sees value, right? Before that it was like hey my team can do the same things that you are saying you can do.
Great. What's next for the business?
So in general, like Restaverse, right? Universal restaurants, like that's the core, and we are basically building that ecosystem for restaurants. So currently, we're literally doing a bunch of things that don't exist in the market. Some of them exist in the market. We are just integrating all of these to make it simpler for the restaurant.
All the very best. Yes, you it's been a pleasure working with you all and also having this conversation today. And I really wish you guys the very, very best. And yeah, and thank you for helping us grow.